"Hey, James!" He spun around. "I know your name. I know your age. I know your parents. I know where your father was buried." The voice came from a shadowed figure at the end of the dark alley. James stumbled back, nearly slipping on the wet pavement. "Who are you?" James shouted, his voice trembling. "How do you know me?" The man stepped forward. His eyes, pitch black, shined even though there were no lights. His skin looked like it had been soaked in ashes. A black robe dragged behind him, though the ground was dry. "Your father," he said, "has passed the torch. His debt is now yours." "What are you talking about?" James barked, but he was shaking all over. "My dad died 3 months ago from cancer. He was a good man." "Your father," the figure replied coldly, "was a high priest in a blood covenant. You were born into this. His death means your soul is now mine." James tried to run, but the man raised his hand and James's body froze, paralyzed. His chest heaved, but he couldn't move his legs, arms, or even blink. "Let me go!" he cried. The figure walked up to him and whispered into his ear, "You will feel nothing now, but tomorrow you'll wake up someone else." Then the man turned into a thick black fog and vanished into James's mouth. James screamed, but no one heard him. James was just a regular 22-year-old guy trying to survive the city grind. He worked night shifts at a security company and spent most days asleep or gaming in his tiny apartment. He wasn't rich. In fact, he barely got by. But James had a soft spot for homeless people. On his way to work, he always passed the same 3 people sleeping near the old bakery. He'd often drop them granola bars, soda cans, or whatever extra food he had. Sometimes he'd even chat with old Mr. Kenny, the one with the ragged red scarf and the toothless smile. "You're too nice, man," his co-worker Marco would say. "Those people don't care. They'd sell your kindness for booze." But James didn't believe that. "Nah, they're people, man. They've had it rough. I got a roof. They don't." That's who James was. Kind, quiet, empathetic. But something changed that night. James had left work early because of a power outage. The streets were quieter than usual, the street lights flickering like dying candles. He walked faster than normal, feeling like someone or something was following him. He kept hearing whispers, but when he looked, no one was there. He turned into the alley near his building. That's when he appeared. That's when everything changed. James woke up sweaty. His mouth was dry. His alarm was blinking, though it hadn't gone off. His room felt colder than usual, even though it was summer. He looked at his hands. They were shaking. He stood up, walked to the mirror. Something about his reflection made his stomach twist. His eyes looked darker, not just the pupils. The skin around his eyes looked bruised. His smile looked more like a snarl. "Weird dream," he mumbled. "Must have been stress." He grabbed his hoodie and backpack and headed out for a walk. As he turned the corner by the bakery, he saw them, the same 3 homeless folks. Mr. Kenny looked up. "Morning, James," he said cheerfully. James froze. Something inside him turned cold. He looked at Mr. Kenny, not with kindness, but with disgust. "Don't talk to me," James growled. Kenny's smile vanished. "What?" Kenny asked. James stepped forward. "I said, don't talk to me, or maybe get a job instead of begging on the streets like trash." Even James was surprised by his words. He blinked, confused at himself, but the anger inside burned hotter. The other 2 homeless folks stood up. "Hey man, that's not like you," one of them said. "You always help." "Help? I'm done helping leeches. You all just sit here wasting space. Maybe the city should throw you all in the river." His voice was loud, furious, venomous. The old bakery owner, Mrs. Daniels, peeked out the door. "James," she shouted, "what's gotten into you?" James turned to her, and for a moment his eyes flickered pure black. Mrs. Daniels gasped and slammed the door. James stood still, breathing heavily. Inside his mind, he heard a voice. "Yes, this is better. You were too soft before, weak. Now you see the truth." James dropped to his knees, grabbing his head, and cried, "What's happening to me?" And the voice replied, "You're becoming who you were always meant to be." That night, James couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw faces, homeless faces, twisting in fear, shouting, begging. And behind them all, that same shadowed man stood smiling. James looked out his window and saw Mr. Kenny curled up on cardboard across the street. Something inside James twitched. He wanted to hurt him. He didn't know why. He didn't want to. But a part of him, deep down, did. Then James smiled. Not his own smile. The smile of something else. Something evil. James stood in front of the mirror again. This time, he didn't flinch. His eyes had changed. The black circles around them had spread slightly, like smoke under his skin. His veins looked darker, almost like someone had drawn over them with black ink. "It's just lack of sleep," he told himself. But a voice in his mind whispered, "No, it's transformation." James walked outside again. It was late afternoon. Clouds hung low like gray sheets, and the air felt heavy, as if something bad was coming. He passed the bakery again. This time, he didn't even slow down. Mr. Kenny looked up from his blanket and gave a weak smile. James
"Are you okay today?" James didn't answer. He spat, actually spat on the ground near Kenny's blanket and kept walking. Inside, James wanted to stop himself, but something else had taken the wheel. That night, James received a letter, an actual old-fashioned letter, shoved under his door. No stamp, no address, just his name. He opened it. Inside, there was a photo, an old picture of his father standing with 3 men in long black robes surrounding a fire. The fire had bones in it, human bones. James' heart pounded. Written in red ink across the top of the photo were the words, "You've already accepted your inheritance." On the back, "We will come for the final offering. Do not resist." James dropped the photo like it burned him. He backed away, sweating, shaking. That night, he heard footsteps above his ceiling, even though he lived on the top floor. 2 days later, Mr. Kenny was gone. So were the other 2 people who lived on that street corner. James asked no questions, but inside something smiled. That same night he had a dream. He stood in a huge stone chamber with walls dripping black slime and bones stacked like bricks. At the center of the room was a throne made of broken shopping carts, cardboard, and sleeping bags. On the throne sat the shadowed man, the one who had possessed him. The man looked down at James and said, "You're doing well, but you've only begun." James looked down at his own hands. They were covered in blood. In the dream he tried to scream, but no sound came out. Then the man rose from the throne and said, "The kindness in you is a disease. We are the cure." James woke up, gasping, covered in sweat, fingernails dug into his palms, blood on his sheets. He didn't remember doing it. Later that day, someone knocked on his door. James opened it slowly. It was a woman, tall, wearing all white, with glowing eyes like sunlight through a window. She looked at him with sadness and said, "You're still fighting it. That means there's hope." James stepped back. "What?" The woman didn't enter. She stayed at the doorway. "The spirit inside you is from a very old covenant. Your father tried to escape it, but he died before he could break the curse." James' mouth went dry. "What curse?" "The possession," she said. "You were born with it, waiting inside. The spirit was awakened when your father died." James clutched the side of the doorframe. "Then how do I stop it?" She hesitated. "You must do the one thing the spirit fears. Show kindness to the ones it hates." James frowned. "You mean the homeless people?" She nodded. "Each time you show love to them, the spirit weakens. But if you keep obeying its rage, it becomes permanent." He blinked. "Why are you helping me?" The woman looked away. "Because I'm your aunt. your father's sister. I left the cult years ago, but I've been watching you." James looked like he'd been punched in the chest, but before he could ask more, she whispered, "They know I'm here. I have to go." She handed him a small necklace with a tiny glass orb that looked like it held a piece of the moon. "This will protect you for now." Then she vanished down the hallway. That night, James made a decision. He packed a bag with granola bars, water bottles, blankets, and some cash. He walked the streets trying to find any homeless person he could help. He found a man near an abandoned train station and offered him a bottle of water and food. As soon as he handed the man the bag, his body twisted with pain. He dropped to the ground screaming as black smoke leaked from his nose and ears. The man ran away, terrified. Inside James's mind, the voice was howling, "Traitor! You dare defy me!" James writhed in agony, but as the pain peaked, it suddenly stopped. He lay there panting, and when he looked at his reflection in a shattered window nearby, his eyes were a little less dark. The next day, his apartment was trashed, windows broken, walls covered in symbols written in blood. One word repeated over and over again, "Offering." Under it was a list of names. James's name was on top. Underneath it, Mr. Kenny's name was crossed out. At the bottom, it now said, "Final offering, due in 3 days." James knew what this meant. They were coming for him, unless he gave them someone else, unless he made another offering. And suddenly, he thought about a woman who slept near the train tracks. Sweet lady named Carol, who once gave him a handmade scarf last winter. He didn't want to think it. He didn't want to. But the voice inside his head whispered, Carol would be enough. James blinked, and for the first time, he smiled.
Carol would be enough. James stood in his dark apartment, that sick smile lingering on his face like it didn't belong to him. He didn't even notice that his fingers had begun to twitch on their own, or that his reflection in the mirror was slightly out of sync. He had a choice now. Give the spirit a final offering, or fight it one last time. The next morning, James walked down to the train tracks. The cold wind slapped his face like it was warning him. Carol was there, exactly where he remembered. She was humming an old tune and mending a hole in her glove with a rusty needle.
"James,"
she said kindly.
"You okay, honey? You look pale."
James forced a smile.
"Yeah, just haven't slept much."
He sat next to her. For a moment, everything was quiet. Then the voice inside him said, "Push her into the tracks. It will be over in seconds." James's fingers curled tightly. He clenched his fists and stood up. "I need to go." Carol looked confused.
Go where?
James didn't answer. He just walked away, fast. That night, his apartment was worse. The walls were bleeding. Yes, bleeding actual blood. From the corners of the ceiling, dark shapes slithered. They watched him. In the bathroom mirror, his reflection looked directly at him and whispered, "Offer her, or become the offering yourself." James backed away. He grabbed the necklace his aunt had given him. The glowing orb flickered like a dying light. He needed help. But who? Who would believe him? There was one place he remembered his aunt mentioning, the Hidden Flame, a small old bookstore on West Haven Street. He rushed there. It was nearly midnight when he arrived. Inside, the store looked empty, but a small bell rang on its own. From the shadows emerged an old woman with eyes like melted gold. "You carry a cursed spirit," she said before he even spoke. James nodded. "I need to stop it. I don't want to hurt anyone." She raised an eyebrow. "Then you must go to the source." "The cult?" he asked. "No," she said. "The Chamber of Fire, the place you saw in your dream. That place is real, and it's calling for your soul." James swallowed hard. "Where is it?" She handed him a map. "Midnight, beneath the old church. Bring the orb. Bring your guilt." He followed the map to an abandoned church. Behind the altar, he found a hidden door. It led to a spiral staircase made of bones. He walked for what felt like hours. Then, there it was, the chamber from his dream, the throne made of shopping carts, cardboard and broken lives, and the shadow man sat there waiting. "You're late," he growled. James took a shaky step forward. "I'm not giving you anyone." The spirit laughed. "You already have. Every time you cursed them. Every time you ignored them. Every time you believed you were better. You fed me. They were your offerings." James dropped to his knees. "No. You chose cruelty. I just opened the door." James held up the necklace. The orb began to glow. "No!" the spirit screamed. "That light!" James stood up. With trembling hands, he smashed the orb against his chest. A white light exploded outward. The spirit shrieked. The throne cracked. The bones crumbled. The chamber began to shake. James woke up in a hospital bed. His aunt was there. "You did it," she whispered. "The spirit's grip is broken. You're free." But James shook his head. "I'm not free. Not until I fix what I broke." 1 month later, James was back on the streets.
Not to hurt, not to ignore, but to serve. He ran a food truck that gave free meals to the homeless. He helped them find shelters. He listened. He hugged. He cried with them. And Carol? She became his first employee. But one night, as James cleaned the truck alone, he heard a whisper in the dark. Kindness delays us. It does not destroy us. He turned quickly. No one was there. But in the shadow of the alley, his reflection smiled again.